How's it going, everybody? We are in week 4 of our Woke Church book study, going through chapters 6 and 7, the Be Accountable section. Now, in chapter 6, Dr. Mason really makes this argument that the church needs to reclaim her prophetic voice or prophetic preaching, which he defines as big picture visionary preaching with street level impact. He says this is biblically soaked and culturally informed preaching that sees gaps between God's word and our world and calls the church to fill those gaps and to answer those needs. Jesus taught something very similar that we might all be familiar with. He said, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And so the goal for the Woke Church then is to become incarnational missionaries who are, like Jesus, identified with the poor, mistreated, oppressed, abused, marginalized in society to their own cost and to the benefit of those needy groups, those who are suffering. We need to be missionaries who love the broken so well that we're not afraid to identify with them or to be amongst them in the midst of where they're living, in the same way that the God-man Jesus chose to leave the throne room of heaven, in Philippians 2 tells us, and all of the blessing and treasury that comes with that, and to become a man and get down in our mess and muck and mire in order to meet humans in the time of their need and help end the suffering that we were going through without hope of a savior. Not for his sake, right? He didn't have to do this, but for ours. For God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten son, right? For God so loved Ann Arbor that he sent Grace Bible Church. We see this not only in Jesus' example as illustrated in Philippians 2, but also in Hebrews 13 as sort of a command for all Christians, in which the writer says, "Remember those in prison as though you were in prison with them, and the mistreated as though you yourself were suffering bodily." With that in mind, what does it look like for us not to just research injustice or to talk about potential justice-oriented solutions, but to be a part of those solutions in embodied incarnational ways, right? To be embedded in a community, in a place or a space where there is need, and to bodily, our own hands and feet, become the hands and feet of Jesus. See, Mason lists several resources and organizations worthy of our support in the coming chapters, but before we can get into all that, he wants to kind of cast a vision for what the gospel-centered, justice-oriented church can do to a community. And personally, I'm excited to announce that we at GBC are going to be releasing a panel in the coming weeks of some local justice initiatives that some Christians are a part of in our community. And they're going to be talking about how they put their faith in action and how we can get involved. And so there will be more information on that in the coming weeks. But even before that, we really need to catch this vision for what the church can be when we see justice as an integral part of what it means to follow Jesus. When we see bringing heaven to earth, not just as preaching, though preaching is so important in the salvation of souls, Mason says must be the key ingredient, but really to try to reform communities, neighborhoods, and the societies that we're a part of. And so Mason offers this framework for us to kind of build upon of intervening, preventative, and systemic justice. Now, he calls intervening justice he says that's getting involved and coming alongside the broken and the hurting and the needy right where they are. He says this is loving the one person that God puts right in front of you, right? This is buying diapers for that single mother who doesn't have diapers for her children. This is what it looks like to intervene in the life of someone else, just to do real practical things that can help and bless others. But then he says preventative justice builds upon helping the individual and loving the one to come up with solutions and communal responses that prevent the kind of dysfunction and certain evils that might run rampant in our communities, in our local cities and neighborhoods from happening, right? We're trying to help prevent that single mom from being in that place of desperation. This might look like a parenting class at the church for mothers who don't, or for parents who never had anybody teach them how to raise kids, Mason says, or perhaps a daycare at the church where we help take care of those working single moms' kids while they go out and make a living for their family. Maybe even a benevolence fund that's set up specifically to help those in need so that we're not caught off guard when the need arises. We already have resources set aside, like we do at this church. And so lastly, Mason says systemic justice builds upon intervening justice and preventative justice to bring gospel gospel renewal to institutions and systems, right? At a legislative or institutional scale. This might look like going beyond just what our local church can do to affect our community and fighting for, say, universal child care for all single working parents. That is just a guarantee that that's something that my tax dollars are worthy to provide for, right? So he's saying, I use these examples because Mason uses these examples, but he's saying, let's build upon the one, the community, and then the national or societal scale. And so as we re-envision what a gospel-centered church can be and do in terms of justice initiatives, it's really important for us to remember, as Mason points out, that we need Jesus to help us not forget that there are kingdom implications for everything we do and also everything we don't do in these areas, or he says neglect to do, right? And so as you think through the material this week, and I'm very much looking forward to our discussion, here's a few questions I want you to have just to be ruminating on and try to answer with maybe your spouse or just in your alone time with the Lord. And the first one is this: what is one injustice, right? One gap between God's word and the world, or the needs in the world, that you have become impassioned about, that has arisen in this course of study, that you learned about in our conversations, that you say, okay, I'm passionate about this. This doesn't sit right with me. I want to be a part of a solution here. And then secondly, why don't you do some research, right? Now you picked your problem. What are some chief causes of this problem? And what are some potential solutions? What are people saying? Scientists, researchers, what are they saying are some of the ways to answer this problem? And then you go beyond that and say, God, what is the gospel solution? Where does the gospel fit in to the solution for this problem? And then lastly, how might the gospel-centered church speak directly into that area or offer a practical way to meet the need in our community right now, right? What can you personally do to embody justice in that area right now? Maybe that looks like at our church, but maybe that looks like at your job or even in your own neighborhood. It doesn't have to be an inner city to find brokenness. What does it look like on your block, in your community, to answer the call of justice in this area, to embody, to be an incarnational missionary, as Mason talks about? So these are some of the questions we're going to consider moving forward, but I really encourage you to take the research part of this seriously this week and in the coming weeks. Like, what is the issue that has gripped your heart that we've learned about? What caused it systemically, historically? What are some proposed solutions? And then really get in your prayer closet, right? Get before the Lord, get in his word, and really cry out to God on behalf of this one issue. Like, what is your heart to fix this, Lord? And how can I be a part of the solution? I love you all very much, and I'm so looking forward to our time together.